Republican voters in Ohio are deciding which candidate will take on Democratic Senator Sherrod Brown in November. Senator J.D. Vance, who you heard in that clip, as well as former President Trump, have endorsed businessman Bernie Moreno. He faces several challengers, including State Senator Matt Dolan, who Trump has called a rhino. Our Shawna Mizelle is with us from the Buckeye State, where voters are still voting. Shawna, good to see you. We have some new exit polling coming out that finds 55% of Ohio Republican voters say that it's, quote, very important for their next senator to support Donald Trump, while 20% say that it's not at all important. This has been kind of a race about Trump loyalists versus the establishment. I'm curious what you make of that. Exit polling seems not to be a big surprise, but what might that tell us about what voters are looking for in terms of these candidates?
Yeah, it's really not a big surprise because Ohio is a state that Donald Trump won by large margins in 2020. He also won the Buckeye State in 2016. The question now becomes how important it is for Donald Trump to support the Ohio Senate candidate. As we know, he did endorse Bernie Moreno.
And what's on the line for Trump here? I mean, he's supported him, as you say. J.D. Vance, as we saw, has been campaigning for him as the Trump candidate. What's at stake for Trump here?
This is really becoming that traditional establishment Republican conservative versus that businessman outsider type of race. You have State Senator Matt Dolan, who was polling ahead of Moreno before Trump came to the Buckeye State, stumping for Moreno. This is really going to be a question of how powerful that Trump endorsement is, and people will be looking ahead to November. If Moreno does become the Republican nominee and run against Sherrod Brown, how will he fare against Sherrod Brown come November, because we saw Trump really supporting a lot of candidates in that midterm election that didn't necessarily do well in the general.
Yeah, that electability argument at the end is still an important question to ask. I know you've also been talking to voters about how they're feeling about this race. I know you've been talking to a lot of them. What did they have to say?
Well, I'm here in Cleveland, Ohio. I've spoken to a lot of Democratic voters, actually, surprisingly, but a lot of them have their eye on November. They came out today specifically to show support for President Joe Biden and the Democratic Party. They're looking ahead to November. Let's play a little bit of what they told me.
I wish Trump would just go away, but he's not going to, so I'll be voting for Biden.
I can't afford 4 more years of Democrats. The last 4 years about broke me.
He liked to see anarchy. He liked to see us fight amongst ourselves. I don't see anything good about Trump.
So obviously very differing views on both sides of the political spectrum from the voters here in Cleveland, Ohio.
Yeah, I'm always interested to see voters that come out, even though the primary, at least on the presidential level, is effectively over, at least for those Democrats here. I do want to talk about the November election because you mentioned Sherrod Brown. Is there any sense from your reporting about, or anything that we've seen from polling, that suggests that one of these Republican candidates may be better positioned to take him on?
You know what? This is going to be a critical race. This race has gotten ugly already in the primary. And like you said, electability is a huge question. Matt Dolan has been on a statewide ballot before. He's in the state Senate, as well as Frank LaRose, the Secretary of State, versus Bernie Moreno, this political outsider. And so that name recognition could come into play. Sherrod Brown's been a senator for as long as I can remember, being born in Columbus, Ohio. But he's the last Democrat to hold statewide office here. And so that is why his seat is seen as extremely vulnerable.
Yeah, and as we kind of know that Republicans have a pretty tight hold on Ohio in the presidential level, but the Senate race, that could be key. Well, Shawna Mizelle, Ohio's own, thank you very much for your time and reporting.